Hi, I'm Yatharth. I talk, write, and occasionally obsess about movies, and today I get to do all three, right here with the minds behind Chhorii 2. I'm here on behalf of IFP, Asia's largest creative community that brings together creators from film, writing, music, and beyond. And today, joining me are two names you definitely know if you love horror: Vishal, the mind behind Lapa Chippy, Badi, and Chhorii, and Jack Davis, founder of Crypt TV and a major voice in global horror. We are here to talk about what went into building the world of Chhorii 2. Vishal, you started this journey with Lapa Chippy, a Marathi film that redefined folk horror for a lot of us. Then came Chhorii, the Hindi remake, and now you're expanding the universe of this horror story into an original Hindi sequel. So, when you move across languages, does the soul of the story shift? And why did you choose not to continue this journey in Marathi?
Hi, Yatharth. Thank you for having us. So when I made the first film Lapa Chhapi, it was made in Marathi purely with the intent of keeping the soul of the story intact. Because at that time, the Hindi film industry, the way the Hindi film industry looked at horror was a bit skewed. It was a bit corrupt in that sense. And I did not want my first film to be corrupted by the template that was offered to me, and just purely because of business reasons. I wanted to tell my voice, and which is why the choice of making it in Marathi, because Marathi has an audience which understands cinema probably a little better than the Hindi film industry, because it's a small state, and people are quite passionate about their culture and their language that they speak in. So that helped me to keep the film pure. Also, the actors were very dedicated and committed. Unfortunately, the idea of the film did work very well, but was limited to that one state, and which is why the need to take it more nationwide. And then when Prime Video came in, Chhorii actually went global. Then I had great partners in Vikram and Jack who literally loved Lapa Chhapi and wanted me to take complete freedom and put my vision behind Chhorii, and help me through the process with no interference. And in fact, the feedbacks were always very motivating and very stimulating for the film. And Chhorii got a great response from the female audiences. They really connected with it, and that led to us making Chhorii 2. So I guess it has been an interesting progression for this story to move from a small state to now a global franchise from India on an OTT platform. So yeah, very happy and very proud that we have been able to do it with the right people behind it.
Jack, you've been part of horror that's worked across continents. So, what's the biggest difference you have seen between scaring audiences in Hollywood and doing the same in India?
Well, that's a great question. I think that there's less differences than you might think, which is why the horror genre is so exciting. I would say, in fact, there's more similarities than differences. The biggest similarity is you must care about the characters for an audience to actually be afraid for them. If you don't set up caring about the characters and an emotional investment, it's hard to care what happens to them. You can always shock value someone in horror. You can always do a jump scare, move the camera a certain way, but those aren't the movies that stick with you, and those certainly aren't the movies that get sequels. The movies that stick with you are ones where you have such an emotional investment in the character, and you really use the sense of dread to set up a movie. When people are watching a horror movie, maybe not always, but often they watch the trailer. Often they walk into the movie, or the opening credits or the music will tee them off that this is a horror movie. So what makes them actually want to stick with it and care? I love that first act. I love the buildup. I love the dread. And I think that no matter what, you need great filmmakers to artfully and elegantly tell a story. So I think the similarities are bigger than the differences. And that's why I feel so lucky to know Vishal, to know our other partner, Vikram Malhotra, because what I saw in them was a ambition to elevate the horror genre in Hindi film in India. What I also saw in them is all the exact same great hallmarks of what makes Western or American or whatever you want to call it horror work. And I've obviously worked with some of the great horror filmmakers like Eli Roth, among others, and they all have that same understanding that even though they love horror, they love their characters as much as they love the scares, because those things have to work hand in hand.
Folk horror is never just about ghosts. It's about the time, the people, the fear we inherit. So, do you see these stories as social commentaries more than just legends meant to spook us?
They could be both, because you could speak about a ritual which might not have that much of a social impact on the larger society, could be very local and traditional in nature, and then there could be something which falls in the larger landscape as well. With Chhorii, we have tried to blend uh, an evil world with a social evil, which is very much prevalent in our country and worldwide as well. So it literally talks about the mindset of a person, and the activities only follow the mindset. So it literally talks about the mindset of a person, and that goes global. The thought that a son is valued more than a daughter is a thought that literally exists in many countries across the globe. So yeah, the themes do. I mean, because they are set in a very old or ancient mindset. So folklore, with its textures and the world building, gives an interesting spin to those stories. But they can literally be told in an urban setup as well. They would not lose its relevance.
So, what led you to continue her arc in this direction? Was it a conscious, creative decision to shift the focus from escape to confrontation?
So it is a multi-layered question. I mean, I would like to give a multi-layered answer to this. First is that this was the story came organically, because in this franchise we are not just trying to tell a scary story. We are giving it a much bigger purpose than just a storytelling by pointing at a certain social evil. Now, unfortunately, in the society there is not just one social evil that exists. There are many more. So while the first one pointed at one social evil, this one points at something else. And organically the world became much more evil, much more scarier, much more sinister. Also, what I feel as a male in this society is that I myself am very angry when I see these atrocities against women, and the mindset of a larger male audience when they talk about women and the way they talk about them, right? So sometimes they follow it up with actions. Sometimes it is in the mind, but it is definitely very much there in a much larger population of the male society. And when I look at that, I am very angry. So while the first one tried to talk about a certain hope, I think over the years I've realized that now I don't think the hope is coming. We need to take matters in hand. So this one is a natural progression into rage from hope. So it is a very male gaze of telling a story of a female character.
How do you work with child actors?
So for me, I've had child actors in almost all of the films that I've made, and I find it much easier to work with children than sometimes to work with adults, because children are not prejudiced by their thoughts. They are very malleable, and they can be molded into whatever form and shape you want them to be molded into. And they literally listen to your briefs very well and then react accordingly. They are good listeners also. So it is for me. It's very. I mean, it's very easy for me to work with children. When we put children, or when we put children with characters which are evil looking, or with a certain prosthetic makeup, what we do is we let the child sit with the artist when the makeup is going on. So in this case, the little girl would sit with Soha before the start of the makeup. So she would talk to Soha. She would know that there is this person, and then the makeup starts, and then the evil makeup is put on. And so now she knows that behind this mask there is a person that she has known before and she has spoken to. So it is not really the entity but a person behind it. So that ways, so this is just one of the ways. And then we have multiple such ways of working with kids, with giving them triggers which resonate with them to elicit a certain reaction from the kid. So we work differently with kids while getting the same reaction that a horror film would give.
But now that OTT platforms have become such a major player, do you think they're finally caught up in terms of delivering the same impact horror usually gets in theaters?
Great question. I also love it because you said I've been proven right. So you're just like the greatest guy ever. Thank you so much for saying that. But, to get back to the question, I think that OTTs at different stages in different regions. I think that as horror has become a bigger genre here in Hindi film, you've seen Netflix and Amazon take very interesting risks. I think that Vishal actually may have been ahead of his time with Chhorii. Is the impact bigger in a theatrical experience versus a streamer? I always go back to the same idea that it's about the story. And in the case of Chhorii, and you have watched Lapachapi, so you know that this evolved from something local language to could be something broader, which it was because of streaming. I think theatrical is an amazing experience, but theatrical is still very region based, right? Obviously, a US theatrical movie ends up being watched often by international audience because it's on streamers. I think the next evolution for Hindi film, which I really firmly believe is coming, is Hindi film to be watched globally, not just taking American film on streamers. And I think that's a great thing. I think that's something that we saw with Chhorii 1. It actually had a robust international audience. Hopefully it continues with Chhorii 2. So the impact is different. I think you have to look at the impact on a global scale, especially as streaming platforms grow. And especially as I think, with this project really finding its audience on Amazon. And that online audience matters because look at how they're flocking to the trailer. Look at how they're flocking on Twitter. Look at the 20 million YouTube views. I think that is something that is helped necessitated by streamers. So it's a little bit comparing apples and oranges, but I know Amazon and T-Series have been amazing partners. So we're happy this movie's on streaming.
What is one of the good horror movies that you two guys watched recently and would highly recommend to other people?
I would like to add two Indian films to these names, done by the same director. So these are films, the film names are Bhutakalam and Brahma Yugam. I think these two films have really, taken Indian horror a few notches up by the great art and craft in those films. So I think with such attempts, I think Indian horror can really gain its respect back, and we have many, many more stories to tell. So I think we have just started. The Indian horror has just started, and I think it will keep on flourishing from here on.
I love Vishal's answer. I would just say that there is so much horror that's happening internationally, and I love international horror and how it's breaking through. I love that film Talk to Me. And I say Talk to Me not just because it's a great movie and the Filippo brothers did a great job and it's a great device with the hand as a metaphor for possession and kind of, the sort of party-going culture. That movie's getting a sequel. I believe that they've announced. I know a sequel's coming. And also that movie was an Australian movie that had huge success in the US because that's the great thing about horror. It can travel different regions because the genre is so universal. I hope that we're on our way to doing that with Chhorii as a franchise. But I like to Talk to Me as a fantastic example. And I think that there's so many examples that come from this genre.
As filmmakers, how do you both see the future of Indian horror? Do you think there's more potential in folk-rooted stories, or are we moving towards modern thrillers? Do you see a way to blend the two?
I think that there's always a way to blend horror and thriller. Obviously, Aditya are incredible partners. They have a ton of great thrillers and have thriller in their history in both TV and film. But I think that you don't have to sacrifice between thriller and social issue. I think that, and what I was trying to tee up for the lovely Vishal is there's so many social issues that we barely scratched the surface on. Horror is a great lens of telling social issues because the intensity of the stakes and how much you feel the emotion and the stakes often in horror movies of life or death mirror the way people feel about those social issues day to day. And Vishal, I know this is something you've spoken on, so please go ahead.
No, I think it is, as I've just, I think, spoken about it some time back, I think it is just the start of Indian horror because as a country, we have so many cultures and so many languages and so many different states that there are hundreds and millions of stories still to be told, and we have not even scratched the surface. I believe that as we spoke some time back, that for a couple of decades, Indian horror took a little dip because of the template format and producers and makers not wanting to risk getting out of that box. But now, since in the last couple of years, when our stories have started blending with the folklore, and Indianness of it all, the films have really worked. So I guess this is a starting point, and the horror comedies have proved with their economic success that they are resonating with the audiences. Horror, pure classic horror, is also picking up. Chhorii 2 is one more addition to that you can say gallery of pure Indian classic horror. And hopefully, I think I myself have many more stories to tell. So I think I am very hopeful about Indian horror, and I feel that we are going to come back in a very big way.
Thank you so much for taking the time for this interview. I hope Chhorii 2 performs greatly. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Yatharth.
you.
You have been really kind, and please thank your family also for watching those films. I really appreciate it. I would like to know what they think about Chhorii 2 as well.
Surely,
And tell
surely.
them to get
We will be
100 other
watching.
people to watch Chhorii too.